For the past 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, Nigeria has been having challenges that are beckoning and waiting for answers and solutions. That is why we are bringing to you our program, State of the Nation. And this is going to come up on our flagship program this morning on ITV. I am hereby inviting you to join me, Bola Bakare, your host, on State of the Nation, so that we can hasten the motions that brings national development. It's going to be a regular basis on Tuesdays. Make it a date with me. I'll be there waiting for you, and then we shall discuss Nigeria on an holistic level.
National development. This morning we should be conversant with a news that we had lately that is out there, that is rife, so we say, that the federal government is going to spend the sum of 999 million naira on the school feeding program. In other words, let's call that 999 million, let's call it 1 trillion. Some school of thought might be thinking, wow, here we go again. Such a large sum of money being expended on the school feeding program. Oh, what has been happening lately, or what has happened before? We never knew what was happening, and then here we go again. Such a huge amount is being spent. On a normal basis, on a regular basis, I keep saying one thing about us Nigerians. At times when we listen, we don't listen well. At times when we are looking at something, we don't see it well. Little wonder we are full of complaints without knowing the nitty-gritty of what has gone down. Let me take us back. Let me give us some few insights about what is happening in terms of the school feeding program. You and I know that Nigeria has been branded, we were close to being called a basket case. We were being told that we have one of the highest numbers of out-of-school children. Little wonder we came with this idea of feeding the kids as an incentive, as a way of luring them to school. And since it has started, we have been seeing gains on a good level. Kids are now proud of going to school. Short of the fact that they are going to eat, which is something a kid loves. We all have been kids before. And I'm sure by the time dad or mom is coming back home and he comes back with a little sweet or a piece of cake or what we call chin-chin or a biscuit or this or that, we are very glad to say, hey, Dad, welcome. Those are the kind of incentives that works on kids. And that is the same incentive that the federal government via the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs is doing to our kids so that they can go to the classroom. These days, it's the kids that are telling the parents, get me dressed, give me a bath, I want to go to school. Forget the fact that he wants to go and eat. And at the same time, he's going to be symbiotic. He's going to eat and he's going to learn. In a short period, he will get more used to learning because learning becomes something different on a regular basis. The food is a ritual. Either you eat your standard rice, maybe they give them rice 2-3 times a week or something else, but it's still a ritual that the kid is used to. But the learning process is something he will get used to because learning, the lessons keep changing on a regular basis. And I'll tell you this. A humanitarian program that encompasses a lot of things, including the school feeding program, has been on for the past 5 years. And it is still going on. As we speak, we have about 9.8 million pupils that are keyed into this school feeding program. And honestly, this has gotten a domino effect in terms of the people that will provide the food. We have close on 127,000 cooks spread over all the 36 plus 1 states of Nigeria taking care of the cooking. We have aggregators, those that procure the food that are highly nutritious with a high content of protein. This is another job employment for those people. But this school feeding program, I'll tell you, it is part of the 4 clusters of the NSIP, National Social Intervention Program, under the coordination of one Dr. Bindil. And I am sure we have been able to give them a follow-up and see what is going on so that we can come back and give you the tidbits about the job they are doing so that we can be a people that are listening, not just listening for listening's sake, but listening and listening well. This school feeding program is a collaboration between the federal government and the state governments. Did you hear that? Between the federal government and the state governments. In the case of the federal government comes up with the funds, with the guidelines, the policies, and the monitoring. But when it comes to the implementation, the day-to-day implementation of this school feeding program, the onus is on the states. That is why I want to come back to a situation where some school of thought are saying, oh, we can't see it, nothing is happening. Some of the money, with the typical Nigerians, we are sure some of the money, some of the foodstuffs are being taken home by some people. Let us aggregate this and apportion the blame where it is. The federal government has already given the funds. It has passed it on to the states, which is closer to you and I, which you have a very good access to. And from then onwards, what the federal government does is to do monitoring. And when it comes to monitoring, somebody from the federal level that goes back to the state to do the monitoring, it is those in the states that will take them to where it is happening. Though at the same time they have officers on ground, but it is the state personnel that will still move them around to say, okay, this is where it's happening, this is where the work is going on. And that brings to mind what happened lately so that we can think along. Because I like us thinking along. We are not trying to feed you with things that you are not ready for. If you cast your mind back to the days of COVID-19, when we had one of the worst disasters in human existence, there was a case of palliatives that were generated by well-meaning Nigerians, that were generated by the Western world, that were generated by international bodies. And in Nigeria, we had loads and loads and loads of palliatives for people to feed on because everybody was kind of stalled, everybody was quarantined. Do you remember what happened? I'm asking you again, do you remember what happened? Most of these foods that were supposed to be given to you and I were being stored in warehouses by the state level. The federal government had already done its own bit in making sure that all these palliatives get to all the states. Then it is our people, the ones that are closer to you, the ones closest to you, are the ones that took all these palliatives, stored them in warehouses. Some of them have even rebranded them so that they can use for their political escapades. That is why I said something earlier. As Nigerians, when we listen, let us listen well. When we look, let us make sure we're seeing what we're looking at. Before we apportion the blame that monies are not being spent right, take time out to follow the trajectory of where the funds were disbursed. What I'm saying about this school feeding program is simple. There is a collaboration between the federal government and the state government. The federal government have made the funds, the guidelines, the policies available. It is now the onus is now on the states to make sure that these things go forward. I would like to say one thing to your faces. When next you find a fault, when next you see something untoward, it is at your state level. It is at a level where you are used to. It is at a level where you probably, not even probably, you will probably know the person who is at the helm of affairs of that thing in your state. Don't wait until the palliatives are stored in a warehouse. Then you start complaining or you start boggling the warehouses. Don't wait and say, oh, there is no school feeding program. I haven't seen anything. Take time out to go to the schools and you see the kids being fed so that you can have that satisfaction of, oh, I'm sorry for saying such earlier. And honestly, this is going to be a continuous program, because the school feeding program is synonymous with free education. When the incentives are there, on the primary level, and probably if we can try on the secondary level, that the education is free and there is an incentive of food being given, 1 meal a day, we'll be able to take most of our kids off the streets. We'll be able to educate our leaders. However smart we are, however rich we are presently, we are not going to last forever. Those kids, either we teach them, either we train them, either we educate them, sensitize them, orientate them. If we shy away from all these factors, they will be the ones that will become the leaders of tomorrow. And for God's sake, you can imagine what will happen to our nation, Nigeria, when the ones we make leaders and the ones we never took time out to take care of and educate them. The school feeding program that I'm talking about this morning is gladly a situation where education, bringing the kids off the streets, have been synthesized together by this school feeding program. Let us all add all we can. Advices that we have, let us throw it in the right quarters. The right things to do, let us do it. And then I want to tell you this. Remember what the notion of Ministry of Information says. If you see something, say something. Because it is when you say something that will be able to develop on what is happening in the immediate.